Jake Morrison stood in the large white room and looked around. The ceiling was high above him, and strange lights moved across the walls. He had traveled very far from Earth to be here, on a space station that belonged to aliens. The Galactic Council wanted to meet all humans who came to space for the first time. They needed to know what kind of people humans were. A tall alien walked toward Jake. It had 6 arms and big eyes that looked like glass with rainbows inside. The alien's name was hard to say, so Jake just called it the Attendant in his mind. The alien pointed one arm at a round platform in the middle of the room. "Please stand there, human," the alien said. The words came from a small device that translated alien speech into English. "The machine will scan you. It will take 3 minutes." You might feel a small tingle. Jake walked to the platform and stood still. He wore his military uniform neat and clean. He was a little nervous but tried not to show it. Other humans had already done this scan. They all said it was easy and didn't hurt. Around him, pictures appeared in the air. They were holograms showing Earth animals. Jake saw lions, sharks, eagles, and wolves. These were predators, animals that hunted other animals. He wondered why the alien machine was showing him these pictures. The scanning started. Jake felt a soft buzzing in his head. It wasn't painful, just strange. The alien attendant watched a screen that showed information Jake couldn't read. Behind the attendant, 3 more aliens stood watching. One looked like it was made of jelly that glowed. Another had scales like a fish. The third alien was covered in what looked like metal or crystal. The pictures of animals started moving faster. Lion, wolf, bear, tiger, then snake, spider, shark. The pictures went faster and faster. Jake saw animals he knew and animals he had never seen before. Some of them must have been from alien planets. The alien attendant made a noise. Its rainbow eyes got very wide. "This is strange," it said. "What's wrong?" Jake asked. He was still standing on the platform. "The machine cannot find a match for you," the attendant said. Its arms moved quickly, touching buttons in the air that Jake couldn't see. "The machine has information about 47 million species. Every animal that ever lived on Earth is in the machine. Every predator from hundreds of planets. But none of them match you." More aliens came closer to watch. One of them, the crystal alien, spoke in a deep voice. "The machine has worked for 12,000 years. It has never failed to classify a species." "What does classify mean?" Jake asked. "It means the machine tells us what kind of predator you are like," the attendant explained. "Every intelligent species is like some kind of predator. Pack hunters like wolves, solo hunters like tigers, patient hunters like crocodiles. The machine looks at your mind and tells us which one you are most like." Jake watched as the pictures kept changing. Now they showed aliens hunting on strange planets, creatures with too many legs, things that looked like plants but moved like animals. Nothing stayed on the screen for more than a second. 5 minutes passed. Then 6, then 7. The machine should have finished long ago. The alien attendant looked worried now. The other aliens were talking to each other in languages the translator couldn't handle. Finally, the machine made a low sound and stopped. All the pictures disappeared except for one. It wasn't a picture of an animal. It was just words floating in the air. The attendant read them and went very still. "What does it say?" Jake asked. The attendant looked at Jake. For the first time, Jake saw fear in an alien's face. "The machine has asked a question. This has never happened before." "What question?" The attendant read slowly from the floating words. "The subject can adapt and persist. The subject can create tools. The subject can change its environment. The subject can work in a pack or alone. The subject can hunt in any terrain. The subject can pursue prey for longer than the prey's entire life. The subject can plan for threats that do not exist yet." The attendant paused. "The machine says it cannot tell which predator you are. Instead, it asks a question. Which predator will you become?" Jake stood very still. He thought about what the machine had said. Humans could do all those things. Humans had survived ice ages and droughts. They had crossed oceans and deserts. They had learned to live in forests, on mountains, in hot places and cold places. They didn't have one way of doing things. They had many ways. Another human walked up. Her name was Lisa, and she was the second in command of the human group. She had been waiting and listening. Now she spoke to the aliens. "I think the machine just figured out what makes humans different," Lisa said. The jelly alien that glowed asked, "Please explain." Jake stepped down from the platform. "We're not one kind of predator," he said. "We're all kinds. We didn't become specialists. We became generalists. We can be like wolves when we need to work together. We can be like tigers when we need to work alone. We can be like eagles when we need to watch from above. We choose based on what we need to do. That is impossible, the scaled alien said. Every species has one nature. One pattern. That is what the machine detects. Our nature is to adapt, Lisa said. We survived on Earth because we could change. We didn't outcompete our environment. We outadapted it. The crystal alien spoke again. Its voice was serious. This is concerning. A species without a fixed pattern is unpredictable. How can we work with you if we cannot predict what you will do? Jake looked at Lisa. She looked back at him. They both understood what was happening. The aliens were afraid. Not afraid that humans would hurt them. Afraid that they couldn't understand humans? I guess that's what the machine is asking, Jake said. You can't predict which predator we'll become because we decide based on the situation. Sometimes we're patient. Sometimes we're aggressive. Sometimes we work together. Sometimes we work alone. You choose your nature? The attendant asked quietly. We adapt our nature, Lisa corrected. That's how we survived. And that's probably going to make this partnership either very good or very complicated. The crystal alien's body flashed with light. I must tell the High Council immediately. This changes everything about how we understand humans. The aliens hurried away to talk to their leaders. Jake looked at the screen where the question still floated in the air. Which predator will you become? He smiled a little. It was, he thought, the most honest question anyone had ever asked about humans. The answer wasn't simple. The answer was that humans would become whatever they needed to be. Lisa stood next to him. They're going to want to study us now, she said. I know, Jake said. They're going to want to test us. See how we react to different situations. Are you ready for that? Jake looked at the question one more time before it disappeared. We've been tested by nature for millions of years. A few alien tests should be easy compared to that. But as they walked out of the scanning room, Jake wondered if he was right. The aliens seemed very concerned. They had rules and systems for everything, and humans didn't fit into any of their systems. This was going to be interesting. The High Council met 6 hours after Jake's scan. This was very fast for the Council. Usually they took days to meet. The fact that they came together so quickly told Jake everything. The aliens were taking this seriously. The human group had 12 people. There were diplomats, military officers, and scientists. They all walked together into the grand chamber. It was a huge round room where aliens from 47 different species gathered. Some floated in the air. Some sat in chairs. Some hung from the ceiling. Each species looked completely different from the others. Jake had to do his scan again. This time, 5 other humans joined him. The council wanted to see if all humans got the same result. They did. Every single time, the machine couldn't classify them. Every time, it asked the same question. Which predator will you become? A tall alien made of crystal stood in the center of the room. Its name was Chancellor Vorim. It was the leader of the council. When it spoke, its body flashed with light, and the translator turned the flashes into words. We have a serious problem, Chancellor Vorim said. The predator classification system is not just a game. It is the foundation of how we understand species. It tells us how species will act.
How they will react to danger.
How they will solve problems. Without it, we cannot predict human behavior. A human woman stood up. Her name was Helen, and she was the leader of the human diplomats. She had gray hair and calm eyes. She had spent many years helping different groups of people work together on Earth. Maybe not every species needs to fit into a box, Helen said. An alien with scales that changed color spoke. Its name was Ambassador Threnix. The box, as you call it, is necessary. How can we trade with you if we don't know how you assess risk? How can we share territory if we don't know what triggers your aggression? The classification system tells us if a species will fight, run, or negotiate. With humans, we have no baseline. Another human stood. His name was Daniel, and he was a ship captain. He had led missions on Earth for many years. Maybe you need a new way of thinking, he said. You're treating this like a problem. Maybe it's an opportunity. An opportunity? Chancellor Vorim's crystal body pulsed with light that seemed skeptical. Explain. Your system works because species are predictable, Daniel said. But predictable also means rigid. You know how each species will react. That means you know their limits. With humans, you don't have that certainty, but you also don't have those limits. Whispers spread through the chamber. Aliens talked to each other in ways Jake couldn't understand. Lights flashed. Colors changed. Sounds played that were too high or low for human ears. Another alien spoke. It was made of something that looked like clear jelly that glowed from inside. Are you saying unpredictability is good? In the right situation, yes, Helen said. Look at your council. You have species that are good at different things. Some are good at negotiating. Some are good at planning. Some are good at building. You've made a civilization by combining different strengths. And you think humans would add to this? Chancellor Vorum asked. We think we already have, Helen said. In 3 months, human engineers worked with alien technicians to make the scanner better. Our doctors worked with alien physicians to create new medical treatments. Captain Daniel's crew saved an alien ship that was caught near a black hole. Normal cooperation, Ambassador Thrennick said. Any new species contributes something. But we contributed by adapting, Jake said. Everyone looked at him. He wasn't supposed to speak in the council, but Helen nodded at him to continue. The scanner improvement happened because our engineers asked, what if we try a different way? The medical treatments came from combining your healing with our surgery. The rescue happened because Captain Daniel looked at a situation your rules said was impossible and decided to try anyway. You broke rules? An alien asked. It sounded upset. We adapted them, Daniel said. Your rule said the gravity would destroy any rescue ship. So we didn't send a rescue ship. We used a drone with human pilots controlling it from far away. We combined your drone technology with our control methods in a way neither species had thought of. Chancellor Vorum was quiet for a long time. Its crystal body pulsed with internal light. You describe problem-solving that adapts. Many species can do this, but it does not address our concern. Without classification, we cannot predict how humans will respond to stress, conflict, or lack of resources. Then test us, Helen said simply. The entire chamber went silent. Every alien in the room focused on Helen. Explain, Chancellor Vorum said. You want to know which predator we become in different situations? Then create those situations. Design tests that would make different species react in different ways. See how humans react. It's not perfect, but it's better than guessing. You volunteer for stress testing? Ambassador Thrennick asked. Its scales turned yellow with surprise. Such tests are difficult. They are designed to trigger deep instincts. We understand, Helen said. But if it helps the council trust us, we're willing. Chancellor Vorum talked with other council members. They used light, smell, sound, and methods humans couldn't detect. Finally, Chancellor Vorum turned back to the humans. Very well. We will design tests based on known stress patterns. These will be done in simulation rooms. Experts from many species will watch to make sure no one gets hurt. Do you accept? Helen looked at Jake, Daniel, and the other humans. Each of them nodded. We accept, Helen said. Then we begin preparations now, Chancellor Vorum said. The results will determine humanity's status in the council. I suggest you prepare yourselves. The tests will not be easy. When the council session ended, the humans walked back to their rooms. Jake walked next to Helen. Was this smart? He asked quietly. Volunteering for psychological tests designed by aliens who don't understand us. Helen smiled. Jake, they're about to learn something about humans. We don't just adapt to challenges. We do well with them. Those tests will teach them more about humanity than any scan could. What will they learn? That asking which predator we become is the wrong question, Helen said. The right question is, what will we become when we need to be? Jake thought about this as they walked through the station's halls. Somewhere in the station, alien psychologists were designing tests to push humans to their limits. Tests meant to force humans to show their true nature. He found himself looking forward to it. Humans had spent millions of years being tested by nature itself. A few alien tests would be easy compared to surviving ice ages, predators, diseases, and all the other challenges Earth had thrown at humanity. The aliens wanted to see which predator humans would become. Jake suspected they were going to be very surprised by the answer. The testing facility was a huge building on the alien station. It could create any environment from any planet. Jake stood with 11 other humans in a room above the test chamber. They could see everything through clear walls. Below them, the first volunteer entered the simulation. Her name was Amy. She was a scientist who studied alien life. She was 30 years old with red hair tied back. She had volunteered to go first because she wanted to help the council understand humans. An alien named Dr. Kethix explained the test. It had 6 arms and rainbow eyes. The first test is based on persistence predators, it said. The subject will have a goal and obstacles that seem impossible. Most pack species try to get help. Solo ambush species wait for better conditions. Persistence predators continue despite poor results. We want to see which pattern humans follow. The simulation started. Amy stood in a desert. Everything looked real. The sun was hot. The sand was bright. A message appeared in her vision. Reach the water 15 kilometers away before you die of thirst. The simulation would make her feel hot and tired without actually hurting her. The aliens watched from above. Amy started walking right away. She kept a steady pace. The heat got worse. Fake mirages appeared, showing water that wasn't there. The distance seemed to barely change. She should be reconsidering, Ambassador Thrennick said. His scales turned green. The energy cost versus progress has reached the point where most persistence predators would change strategies. But Amy kept walking. When rocks blocked her path, she climbed over them. When a simulated sandstorm hit, she wrapped her jacket around her head and kept going. The distance finally started to change. 10 kilometers, 8 kilometers, 5 kilometers. Interesting, Dr. Kethix said. She maintains pace despite the scenario being designed to discourage effort. Is this normal human psychology? Keep watching, Helen said. At 3 kilometers, the simulation created a final challenge. A steep canyon blocked the way. Amy would have to climb it or go around it. She looked at it for 30 seconds. Then she sat down. Is she giving up? Chancellor Vorum asked. No, Jake said with a smile. She's solving the problem. Amy took off her boots. She tied the laces together. She used them with rocks to make a simple grappling tool. She tested different ways to throw it. Finally, she hooked it on a rock above. She climbed using the boot rope. She got it back at the top and kept walking to the water. She reached it with time to spare. Analysis? Chancellor Vorum asked Dr. Kethix. She showed persistence predator stamina, tool creation ability that doesn't match any classified species, and adaptive problem-solving under stress. If I had to classify this, I would say she became multiple predators during the same test. The second test was for pack cooperation. 2 humans, Greg and Lisa, were put in a scenario where they had to escape a collapsing building. The simulation was designed to make them compete or establish a leader. Most pack species showed clear patterns. They established a hierarchy. They followed the strongest member. They sacrificed individuals for group survival. Solo predators abandoned cooperation when personal survival was at risk. Greg and Lisa did neither. They talked constantly. They shared observations. They took turns leading based on whose skills were most useful. They refused to leave each other even when the simulation gave them chances to save themselves alone. They treat this as equal partnership, a glowing jelly alien said. There is no hierarchy. How do they make decisions without a clear leader? They discuss and adapt, Captain Daniel said. Each leads when their skills matter most, then follows when the other person's skills are needed. That ego flexibility is unusual, Dr. Kethix said. Most species struggle to shift between leading and supporting so easily. Greg and Lisa finished successfully. They came out of the simulation laughing about a moment where Greg almost fell through a fake floor. They laugh about near death? Ambassador Threnix asked. His scales showed confused purple. It's a stress response, Helen explained. Humans often use humor to process danger after it's over. It helps us stay psychologically healthy. The third test was for aggression. Jake volunteered for this one. He knew it would be intense. The simulation put him with a fake alien that became more and more aggressive. It used threat displays that would trigger defensive instincts in most species. The aliens watched as Jake did something unexpected. He de-escalated. He didn't respond to threats with his own threats. He didn't retreat. He stayed calm and non-threatening while positioning himself so the fake alien couldn't attack easily. He used words even though the fake alien didn't respond. He kept his voice steady and calm. The simulation made the aggression worse and worse. Most species would either fight or run. Jake did neither. He held his ground but offered compromise. He kept signaling he wasn't hostile while making it clear he wouldn't leave. Finally, the simulation attacked him directly. Jake's response was precise. He defended just enough to stop the attack without hurting the fake alien badly. Then he immediately went back to non-threatening behavior while keeping his position. I don't understand, a council member said. He had chances to establish dominance through aggression. Why didn't he? Because the goal wasn't to win. Jake explained after leaving the simulation. The goal was to resolve the territorial dispute. Aggression would work, but it would create an enemy. De-escalation takes longer and requires more mental energy, but it leaves open the possibility of future cooperation. You consciously chose a harder path for theoretical future benefits? Chancellor Vorim asked. Yes. Humans call it keeping your options open. The tests continued for 3 days. Each was designed to trigger specific predator responses. Each revealed the same pattern. Humans didn't fit any single category because they kept adapting their approach based on the situation. In a resource scarcity test, the humans shared instead of competed, but they also created new resources through tools and changing the environment. In a pursuit test, they showed patience beyond any known persistence predator, but they also knew when to stop pursuing. In a threat assessment test, they showed an unusual mix of curiosity and caution. They approached danger carefully instead of either avoiding it or confronting it by instinct. By the end of the 3rd day, the council chambers were full of debate. Some members said humanity's adaptability made them ideal council members. Others worried that the lack of predictable patterns made humans dangerous. A few said humans represented an entirely new classification that would require changing the basic frameworks of galactic psychology. Dr. Keithix presented the final analysis to the council. After extensive testing, we conclude that humans don't fit the predator classification system because they are not a predator in the traditional sense. They are an adaptive generalist species with psychological capacity to consciously select behavioral patterns based on context. In simpler terms, Ambassador Threnix asked, humans choose who they want to be in each situation, Dr. Keithix said. This is unprecedented among known species. Most have deep instinctual patterns that govern responses. Humans have those instincts too, but they have an unusual ability to override them through conscious decision-making. Chancellor Vorim's crystal body pulsed, which brings us back to the scanner's original question. Which predator will they become? With respect, Chancellor, Helen said, standing. We've shown that's still the wrong question. The scanner should ask, what does the situation require? Explain, Chancellor Vorim said. Every species in this council has strengths and limits based on their fundamental nature. That's not weakness. It's what makes cooperation valuable. You need each other because you're different. Humans add something to that equation. Flexibility. We can adapt to fill gaps, to bridge differences, to approach problems from angles that species with more rigid instincts might not consider. You suggest your lack of classification is itself your classification? An alien asked. Maybe, Helen said. Or maybe the classification system needs to account for something it hasn't seen before. A species whose nature is to transcend nature through conscious choice. The council chamber was silent. Finally, Chancellor Vorim spoke. We need time to think about these findings. The human delegation should prepare a proposal for how they wish to be classified. This decision will set precedent for future species integration. As the humans left, Jake walked beside Amy. Do you think they'll accept us? She asked. Jake looked back at the chamber where dozens of alien species were trying to understand something new, a species that refused to be just one thing. I think, he said slowly, they're realizing that accepting us means accepting uncertainty, and that's either going to be the best thing that happened to the council or the most terrifying. Which do you think? Jake smiled. That depends on which predator we choose to become. 2 weeks passed while the council thought about their decision. The humans stayed on the station. They worked with aliens on different projects. They shared knowledge. They built relationships. During this waiting time, everything changed. The emergency alarm sounded at 3 a.m. Jake woke up fast. The alarm was a sound that meant danger in any language. He put on his uniform and ran to the human command center. Captain Daniel was already there working with station security. What's happening? Jake asked. Pirate raid, Daniel said. He looked at holographic displays floating in the air. A group called Vortians. They have weapons. They broke into the commercial sector and took hostages. At least 50 civilians from different species. 3 of them are humans. Helen arrived. Her face was serious. The council? Meeting now. Station security is planning a response. But there's a problem. Daniel pointed at the holographic map. The pirates positioned themselves at a junction with civilians spread across multiple areas. Any normal assault will cause massive casualties. Security says 70% chance of hostage deaths if they attack. What do the pirates want? Amy asked. Standard demands. Safe passage, a ship, supplies. They're using hostages as leverage. Daniel's expression was hard, but Vortian psychology is ambush predator. High aggression, low patience. Securities negotiator gives it 6 hours before they start killing hostages to prove they're serious. Jake felt sick. 3 humans were among those hostages, plus dozens of aliens who had been friendly to humanity. What's the council doing? They're divided, Helen said, checking her tablet. Some species want immediate assault despite casualties. Others want to negotiate. Some are arguing about proper procedures. They're stuck in debate while time runs out. Classic committee deadlock, Daniel said bitterly. Every species looking at this through their predator instincts. Aggressive ones want to attack. Cautious ones want to wait. Pack coordinators want consensus before acting. Meanwhile, people will die. There's another factor, Helen said quietly. This is the first major crisis since we arrived. How we respond will influence the Council's decision about our integration. They're watching to see which predator we become under real pressure. Jake looked at the holographic display. He studied the layout of the commercial sector. The pirates had chosen well. They exploited the station's design to create multiple defensive positions. It was a tactical nightmare. Captain, Jake said slowly. An idea formed. What if we're thinking about this wrong? Explain. Every species is approaching this from their predator instinct. Fight, wait, coordinate, whatever. But humans don't have just one approach. What if we use that? You want to do what exactly? Helen asked. We volunteer to handle the situation, Jake said. Not instead of station security. Working with them. We adapt a response that combines multiple approaches, something that doesn't fit any single species' instincts. That's very risky, Daniel said. If we fail, it confirms every council member's worst fears about human unpredictability. It could end our chances of integration. And if we succeed, Amy asked. If we succeed, Helen said thoughtfully, we demonstrate exactly what human adaptability can accomplish. We show them our flexibility isn't a problem. It's an advantage. Daniel was quiet for a long time. The weight of command showed on his face. Finally, he nodded. I'll contact station security. But we do this properly, with full coordination. No heroics. Within an hour, Jake sat in a planning session with Commander Silith, head of station security. Silith was a Kessian with scales locked in stress pattern red. Your captain says humans want to help, Silith said. His translator made his tone skeptical. No disrespect, but hostage rescue requires years of training and instinctual coordination. Your species has been in space less than a year. We're not proposing to replace your team, Jake said. We're proposing to add an approach your team can't. Commander, what's your species predator classification? Kessian are pursuit predators. We excel at sustained pressure and coordinated tracking. Exactly. Your instinct is to maintain pressure until the target surrenders. That's valuable. But the pirates are ambush predators. They're dug in and won't break under sustained pressure because that's what they expect. You have a better approach? Silith's scales shifted to interested yellow. Not better. Different, complementary. Jake showed the tactical display. Your team maintains planned pressure on the main position. Keep the pirates focused on the conventional threat they understand. Meanwhile, a human team does something unexpected. We improvise. Improvise is not a tactical term, I know. It means we adapt in real time, creating solutions that don't fit established patterns. The pirates expect either assault or negotiation, because that's what species with fixed instincts do. They're not expecting an approach that changes based on their reactions. Silith studied Jake. Your testing revealed unusual adaptive capacity. You believe this applies to combat? Combat, negotiation, problem solving. Humans have done this on Earth for thousands of years. I understand desperation. Very well. Coordinate with my tactical officer. But understand if this fails, the consequences will be severe for everyone. The plan came together quickly. It drew on human experiences with hostage situations throughout Earth's history, combined with alien technology and Kessian tactical knowledge. It wasn't elegant. It violated many standard protocols. But it had one advantage. It was completely unexpected. Jake led a team of 5 humans, including Amy and Greg from the psychological tests. They approached the crisis from 3 directions at once: negotiation, infiltration, and misdirection. The Kessian security team maintained conventional pressure, holding the pirates' attention. Meanwhile, Amy used her knowledge of alien biology to analyze the station's environmental systems. She found a way to subtly alter the air mixture in the hostage area, not enough to harm anyone, but enough to make the Vortian pirates slightly tired and less alert over time. It was a tactic that required understanding both alien bodies and environmental engineering. Greg worked with an alien technician to hack the local communications network. They created false signals that made the pirates think reinforcements were coming from multiple directions. This divided their attention and forced them to spread their defensive positions thinner. Jake, with 2 other humans and Kessian security, infiltrated through the station's maintenance areas. Humans smaller size compared to many species let them navigate spaces the larger Kessian couldn't access. The actual rescue took 6 hours of careful, patient work. It wasn't dramatic, it was methodical, adaptive, and required constant communication and adjustment. When the pirates started realizing something was wrong, the team adapted. When hostages needed medical attention, they improvised solutions. When a Kessian officer's instincts told him to assault, Jake convinced him to wait and let the environmental effects and misdirection work. Finally, at 9 in the morning, with the pirates exhausted, confused, and their defenses compromised, Commander Syleth gave the signal. The coordinated assault was swift and precise. All hostages were recovered safely. The pirates, disoriented and outmaneuvered, surrendered with minimal resistance. Jake stood in the command center afterward, exhausted and running on adrenaline. Station security processed the prisoners. Medical teams checked the hostages. All 3 humans who had been captive were safe. Every other hostage was safe too. 0 casualties on either side. Commander Syleth approached him. His scales cycled through colors the translator struggled to interpret. Finally, they settled on respectful blue. I have been in security for 23 years. I have never seen a hostage situation resolved with no deaths. It was a team effort, Jake said. Your people, our people, working together. No, Syleth said firmly. It was adaptation. My people followed training, which is valuable but rigid. Your people saw what the situation required and became what was needed. When negotiation was required, you negotiated. When technical expertise was needed, you engineered solutions. When patience was necessary, you waited. When action was required, you acted. You were every type of predator in sequence. Is that a compliment? Syleth's scales shifted to amused green. It is an observation, and perhaps an answer to the question your scanner could not resolve. News of the successful rescue spread through the station within hours. By the time Jake returned to the human quarters, he found Captain Daniel in a meeting with Helen and several council representatives. Chancellor Vorum's holographic presence dominated the room. His crystal body pulsed with what seemed like approval. The council observed the hostage situation's resolution with great interest. Commander Syleth's report has been shared with all member species. We just helped where we could, Daniel said diplomatically. You demonstrated the adaptability that concerned us, Chancellor Vorum replied. But you did so in a way that enhanced rather than disrupted the existing response. You worked within station security's framework while thinking beyond it. Is that a problem? Helen asked carefully. That, Chancellor Vorum said, is what we need to discuss. The Council is prepared to render its decision on humanity's classification status. However, the incident has raised new questions about how that classification should be structured. Jake felt tension in the room increase. This was the moment that would determine humanity's. The Grand Chamber was more crowded than Jake had ever seen it. Representatives from every council species attended. Observers from dozens of non-member civilizations watched too. They had all heard about humanity's unusual situation. The human delegation sat in their area. 12 individuals representing 8 billion people back on Earth who were watching through quantum communication. Chancellor Vorum's crystal body occupied the center platform. Light refracted through it in patterns the chamber's systems translated into every language. This session will determine the classification status of humanity within the Galactic Council framework. This decision sets precedent and will be entered into permanent record. Jake sat between Helen and Amy. His heart raced, but he tried to look calm and diplomatic. The past day had been filled with speculation. Some council species had publicly praised the hostage rescue. Others had expressed concerns about unpredictable methods. A few had stayed ominously silent. Before the council renders its decision, Chancellor Vorum continued, we will hear final statements. Dr. Kethix, please present your psychological analysis. The alien with rainbow eyes moved to the center platform. My team has completed extensive analysis of human psychological patterns, including the recent crisis response. Our findings confirm that humans don't fit any existing predator classification because they possess what we term dynamic behavioral architecture. Sounds rippled through the chamber, translated into various biological responses. Dr. Kethix continued. Most sentient species develop behavioral patterns optimized for specific environmental and social niches. These patterns become instinctual over evolutionary time. Humans develop differently. Their environmental pressures were diverse and constantly changing. This resulted in psychology that prioritizes adaptation over specialization. Is this a disorder? A council member asked. A failure to properly develop species-wide instincts? No, Dr. Kethix said firmly. It is a different evolutionary strategy. Where most species optimized for efficiency within specific parameters, humans optimized for flexibility across varying parameters. This creates some cognitive overhead. Humans must consciously evaluate situations rather than rely on instinct. But it also grants remarkable problem-solving capacity. What are the risks? Ambassador Threnix asked. His scales showed cautious orange. During the hostage crisis, humans employed tactics that violated standard security protocols. What prevents them from becoming dangerously unpredictable? Several factors, Dr. Kethix replied. First, humans have strong social conditioning mechanisms. They develop cultural norms and ethical frameworks that guide their flexibility. Second, they demonstrate consistent long-term goal orientation, even while tactics vary. Third, and perhaps most importantly, they show remarkable capacity for cooperation with species whose behaviors are more predictable. They adapt to us, a glowing jelly alien said. Its light pulsed thoughtfully. Even as they maintain their own flexibility. Precisely, Dr. Kethix confirmed. The hostage rescue succeeded because humans adapted their approach to work with Kessian security protocols rather than replacing them. This suggests humans can integrate into existing frameworks while adding new capabilities. Chancellor Vorim pulsed acknowledgement. Commander Silith, you worked directly with humans during the crisis. What is your assessment? The Kessian security commander stood. His scales were neutral blue. I was skeptical of human involvement. My instincts as a pursuit predator species told me that proper training and protocol adherence were essential for crisis response. Humans appeared to lack both. Jake felt the chamber's attention shift. Tension increased. I was wrong, Silith continued. Humans don't lack training or protocol awareness. They simply hold these as flexible guidelines rather than absolute rules. When Lieutenant Morrison proposed their approach, I nearly rejected it because it didn't fit any recognized tactical framework. But their team demonstrated something I hadn't considered. Sometimes the best solution is one that hasn't been standardized yet. You believe human unpredictability is manageable? Ambassador Threnix pressed. I believe human adaptability is valuable, Silith corrected. During the crisis, there were moments when standard protocols would have failed. Having team members who could think beyond those protocols, who could ask what if we tried something different, made the difference between success and casualties. Thank you, Commander. Chancellor Vorim said. Dr. Helen Price, the Council would hear humanity's final statement. Helen stood and moved to the center platform with confidence. Esteemed Council members, we understand the challenge humanity presents to your classification systems. We've spent weeks being tested, analyzed, and evaluated. Throughout this process, we've been asked repeatedly which predator will humans become. She paused, letting the question hang in the air. I'm here to tell you it's still the wrong question. The scanner's query wasn't meant to classify us. It was meant to make you think differently about classification itself. Humanity isn't an anomaly in your system. We're an indication that your system, while functional for known species, may need expansion to accommodate different evolutionary strategies. An alien's harmonious chord turned discordant. You suggest we change our fundamental frameworks? I suggest you expand them, Helen replied. Your predator classification system works because it recognizes that different species have different core instincts. That's valuable knowledge. But what happens when you encounter a species whose core instinct is adaptability itself? You can either treat that as an error or recognize it as a new category. What category would you propose? Chancellor Vorim asked. Adaptive generalist, Helen said. A classification for species that consciously vary their behavioral patterns based on situational analysis. We have instincts, but we have an additional layer of cognitive processing that allows us to evaluate whether those instincts are appropriate for current circumstances. This sounds like you claim superiority, Ambassador Thrennick said. His scales flashed warning red. Not superiority. Difference. Helen's voice stayed calm but firm. Every species in this council has advantages. Glowing jelly species are better negotiators than humans will ever be, because your pack dynamics create natural empathy for group perspectives. Crystal species make better administrators because your patience and long-term focus exceed ours. Kessians make better security officers because your pursuit instincts create natural persistence. She looked around the chamber. Humans aren't better at any specific thing. We're generalists. Our advantage is that we can learn from each of you, adapt our approaches, and potentially find solutions that bridge your different specializations. That's what happened during the hostage crisis. We didn't have better tactics than Kessian security. We had different tactics that complemented theirs. You speak of complementary cooperation, Chancellor Vorim observed. Yet you also demonstrate capacity for independent action that concerns some council members. How do we ensure human flexibility doesn't become human unpredictability in ways that destabilize cooperation? Helen smiled slightly. You do what you've always done with new species. You establish diplomatic protocols, maintain regular communication, build trust through shared projects, and adjust frameworks as needed. The difference is that with humans, you'll need to accept that our methods might vary while our goals remain consistent. That requires considerable trust, a council member noted. Yes, Helen agreed, but consider what you've already observed. When we arrived, your scanner couldn't classify us. Instead of hiding that or trying to force ourselves into an existing category, we volunteered for testing. When hostages were taken, we didn't demand control or reject your security protocols. We offered to work within your framework while adding our perspective. We've been transparent about our nature even when it complicated our integration. If you can't trust our methods, trust our demonstrated willingness to cooperate. The chamber fell silent. Jake saw the bioluminescent pulses of jelly representatives, the color shifts of scaled delegates, the crystal refractions of observers. Humanity's fate was being decided by beings fundamentally different from humans. Finally, Chancellor Vorim spoke. The council will now deliberate. The human delegation will be called when a decision is reached. The humans were escorted back to their quarters. The waiting began. Minutes stretched into hours. Jake paced while Amy reviewed files and Daniel maintained communications with Earth. Helen sat calmly, appearing to meditate. 6 hours after deliberation began, the summons came. The grand chamber was quieter when they returned. Chancellor Vorim's crystal body pulsed with light the translators rendered as resolution. The Galactic Council has reached a decision regarding humanity's classification status. This decision was not unanimous but achieved the required threshold for integration policy. Jake's heart hammered. After extensive deliberation, the Council has determined that humanity will be classified as an adaptive generalist species. This is a new category being added to the Predator classification system. This classification acknowledges that humans possess dynamic, behavioral architecture that allows for conscious adaptation of tactical and strategic approaches while maintaining consistent ethical frameworks and long-term goal orientation. Relief flooded through Jake. But Chancellor Vorim. 3 months passed since the Council's decision. Jake found himself back in the registration hall where his journey had begun. The Predator classification scanner had been updated. Its database now included the new adaptive generalist category. He watched as new humans, fresh from Earth, stepped onto the scanning platform. The alien attendant was the same one who had scanned Jake. Its rainbow eyes recognized him immediately. Lieutenant Morrison, have you come to observe the classification process? Just curious to see if the scanner still asks questions, Jake said. The attendant's antenna twitched in what might have been amusement. The scanner no longer asks humans which predator they will become. It now states what they are, beings who choose their nature based on circumstances. It is, our psychologists tell us, the most honest classification in the entire database. Jake watched as the new humans were scanned and classified. Each one received the adaptive generalist designation. They looked excited, nervous, and ready to explore the galaxy. Some would become diplomats. Others would be scientists or engineers or artists. They would spread through the council species, adapting and learning and contributing their unique perspective. Life on the station had changed for the humans already there. Jake now spent his days working with mixed species teams. Yesterday, he had helped a group of crystal aliens understand human humor. Last week, he had trained with Kessian security forces, teaching them adaptive tactics while learning their pursuit strategies. Tomorrow, he would attend a diplomatic function with representatives from 12 different species. Amy had become something of a celebrity among alien biologists. Her work combining human and alien medical knowledge had led to 3 major breakthroughs in trauma care. She now led a research team of 7 species, each bringing their unique perspective to problems. Greg had partnered with Valorian technicians to revolutionize communication systems. By combining human adaptability with alien precision, they had created translation protocols that worked 40% better than previous methods. Captain Daniel commanded a joint human-alien crew on exploration missions. His ship, the Constellation, had discovered 2 new habitable planets in the past month. The mission succeeded because the crew combined human flexibility with alien specialization. Helen had been appointed as humanity's permanent ambassador to the Council. She spent her days in endless meetings, negotiations, and diplomatic functions. But Jake had heard her say once that she loved every minute of it. She was helping build bridges between species that had never imagined working together before. The 5-year evaluation period had started. Every human action was watched, analyzed, and discussed. Some council members remained skeptical. They worried that humans would eventually become too unpredictable. Others had embraced humanity's presence, seeing the value in having adaptable partners. There had been challenges. 2 months ago, a human engineer had modified a power system without proper authorization. The modification made the system more efficient, but it violated 17 different safety protocols. The incident had caused heated debate in the council. Eventually, they created new guidelines that allowed for innovative modifications while maintaining safety standards. Last month, a human diplomat had brokered peace between 2 species that had been in conflict for 300 years. She had done it by approaching the dispute from an angle neither species had considered. Both species' instincts had locked them into rigid positions. The human diplomat had found a third option that satisfied both sides. The council had used it as an example of why adaptive thinking was valuable. Jake's own work had taken him to 4 different alien worlds. On each one, he had faced challenges that required adapting to local customs, environmental conditions, and cultural expectations. On a water world, he had learned to think like an aquatic species. On a high-gravity planet, he had learned patience from species that moved slowly and deliberately. On a world with 30-hour days, he had adapted his sleep cycle to match local rhythms. Each experience had taught him something about both aliens and humans. Aliens had incredible strengths in their specialized areas. Their instincts, honed over millions of years, gave them capabilities humans couldn't match. But humans had something different: the ability to observe, learn, and adapt those specialized strengths for new situations. Now standing in the registration hall, Jake watched a young woman complete her classification scan. She stepped down from the platform with wide eyes, clutching her classification certificate. Adaptive Generalist. She looked confused and proud at the same time. "Excuse me," she said, approaching Jake. "I'm sorry to bother you. But you're Lieutenant Morrison, right? The first human who couldn't be classified?" "That's me," Jake said with a smile. "What does it mean?" she asked. "Being an adaptive generalist?" "The aliens explained it, but I'm not sure I understand." Jake thought about how to answer. "It means we're not locked into one way of doing things. Other species have strong instincts that make them excellent at specific tasks. We have the ability to learn from them and combine different approaches. It means we're flexible." "Is that good?" "It's different," Jake said. "And in the right context, different is exactly what's needed. You'll find that out as you work with other species. Sometimes they'll need your perspective to solve problems their instincts won't let them see." "That sounds like a lot of responsibility." "It is," Jake agreed. "But humans have always carried that responsibility. We've always been the species that asks, what if we tried something different? Now we're just asking that question on a bigger stage." The young woman nodded, looking more confident. "Thank you, Lieutenant." As she walked away, the alien attendant approached Jake. "You have become something of a mentor to new arrivals." "Just trying to help," Jake said. "The council has noticed," the attendant said. Its rainbow eyes reflected light in complex patterns. There is discussion of creating a formal program. Human liaisons who help new species integrate into the council. Your experience adapting to multiple alien cultures makes you ideal candidates. That's interesting, Jake said. Humans helping aliens adapt. There's an irony there. Not irony, symmetry. The attendant's antenna twitched. You help us understand flexibility. We help you understand specialization. Together, we become stronger than either could be alone. Jake left the registration hall and walked through the station's central corridor. It was busy with activity. Dozens of species moved through the space, each going about their business. Crystal aliens refracted light as they glided past. Scaled species changed colors in conversation. Glowing jelly beings pulsed with bioluminescence. And among them, humans walked, talked, worked, and lived. 6 months ago, this would have seemed impossible. Humanity had been alone in the universe. Now they were part of something vast and complex. A civilization of hundreds of species, each different, each valuable. Jake's communicator beeped. A message from Captain Daniel. New mission briefing in 1 hour. Joint operation with Kessian and Crystal species. They needed Jake's adaptive expertise. He smiled. Another mission. Another chance to prove that asking which predator will you become wasn't about having a single answer. It was about understanding that the answer changes based on what's needed. As Jake headed to the briefing room, he passed a viewport showing open space. Stars stretched in every direction, each one potentially harboring life. Each one a possible future partner in the great experiment of galactic civilization. Humanity had asked to join this civilization. The aliens had asked which predator humans would become. The answer, Jake had learned, wasn't simple. Humans would become whatever the situation required. Diplomats when negotiation was needed. Engineers when problems needed solving. Warriors when defense was necessary. Teachers when knowledge needed sharing. Students when lessons needed learning. The scanner's question had been answered. Not with a single classification, but with understanding that some species couldn't be put into simple categories. Some species were meant to bridge categories, to adapt, to change, to grow. Jake reached the briefing room where his team waited. Humans, Kessians, crystal aliens, each bringing their strengths, each ready to work together. Ready for another mission? Captain Daniel asked. Always, Jake said. What do we need to become this time? Daniel smiled. Whatever it takes to succeed. That's our specialty, remember? Jake nodded. That was humanity's specialty. Not being the strongest or fastest or smartest, but being the most adaptable, the most willing to learn, the most capable of changing to meet new challenges. The mission briefing began. Jake listened to the objectives, the obstacles, the risks. His mind was already working, analyzing, adapting. What approaches would work? What could they learn from their alien partners? What unique solutions could humans contribute? The scanner had asked which predator humans would become. The galaxy was still learning the answer, and Jake suspected it would take a very long time before that answer was fully understood, because the answer wasn't fixed. It was fluid, changing, adapting with every new challenge, every new situation, every new day. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not certainty but possibility. Not rigid strength but flexible resilience. Not a single nature but infinite potential. Which predator will you become?